And we're back with another episode of What the
Chill
Podcast. We are pretty excited, guys. This is our first, but not our last Tuesday podcast.
Oh man.
This is our first one. We did want to give you guys some news. We are going to an 8 p.m. start time. That's Eastern Standard Time moving forward. So this is our last 7 p.m. Podcast. We have a lot of things going on. School's going back. Ed's having some surprising news coming up soon. And so we just want to give you the heads up that next Tuesday and all the podcasts moving forward will be at 8 p.m. We're really excited. Last week was a great episode. We had Ryan with Southern Reptiles, kind of talking about the business side of reptile keeping. And so we're excited about this one. This is a guy that I've actually come to know personally pretty recently, I'd say. And so he's a business owner. I'll let him speak more about, his accolades. But he does own a reptile store, which is pretty exciting considering I'm 27. And if I believe correctly, he's 26. And so that was inspiring to me, man. I mean, to be able to own your own reptile store at such a young age, like that's awesome. And so why don't we go ahead and add him? That cool with you, man?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, man. Let's go ahead and add Chantz. Chantz, man, welcome.
What's going on, guys?
What's happening?
Glad to have you on, man. Glad to have you on. It's been a long time coming.
Yeah, for sure.
Hopefully our local peeps in our Gainesville Facebook page will support and tune in too today.
Yeah, absolutely. All I know, if I know my friends, they're going to be looking for any mistake I make to call me out on later. So yeah, they'll definitely be tuning in. So
awesome, man. I'm excited, man. Why don't you go ahead and tell the viewers a little bit about yourself while Ed and I share this stream real quick.
Okay, I got you. My name is Chantz Chick. I was born in this area here in Gainesville, but I actually spent my young life in South Florida. So I got a little bit of scope, a little bit of perspective on Florida as a whole. I like to say I'm from the Pines and the Palms.
Okay.
And I came back up here for high school. I've always, since I could walk and talk and read, been fascinated with nature and wildlife. And, I was one of those Steve Irwin, Jeff Corwin, David Attenborough acolytes, grew up watching nature documentaries and stuff. And then I got into private keeping when I was still in elementary school. I was pretty young. I had to have been between 8 and 10 years old. And I haven't really gone a considerable period of time without having a herp of some sort in my collection since then. And then a couple years ago, I was just a lowly bartender here in Gainesville, and I got a harebrained idea that I could open a reptile store. And I spent the better part of 2 years, because when you're a bartender, you've got time, during the day. Your work life is at night, and so any waking hours you get during the day, you can spend planning. And I was putting together cost benefit analysis and market analysis and studying the trends and picking out spots and talking to people I knew and networking and trying to get funds together. And 2 years later, here I was. Well, actually, it's been 1 year officially at our North location, my very first flagship store. It was July 22nd of last year was our first day open.
Wow.
So
sweet, man. Hey, I gotta ask, man, as a fellow Gainesvillian, where were you a bartender at?
So I've worked security at pretty much every single bar in Midtown. If you know where Midtown is, if you're familiar with the area.
Dude, I'm only a year older than you.
Right, exactly. You were there for Prime Midtown then.
I was, man. UF days.
Yeah, I worked at
Grog,
I worked at Gator City. Yep. So
all those places.
My family actually owns balls.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, it's my cousin, so I don't have any inheritance there, but my cousin owns it, and I worked there for the majority of my time. But I've worked at all the other ones as well. I primarily bartended at balls in our downtown location, Jack's. So.
Cantina. What about Cantina?
You know what? That's actually one of the few places I never did work.
Shucks.
So they were the same kind of. They were across 17th Street, was the way we like to talk about it. And they
were bougie. They were bougie, man.
Well, and there's kind of a reason they went out of business too. Like I don't mean to like cast aspersions upon anybody, but there's a reason why they didn't stick around, and it wasn't the kind of place I would have liked to have worked. So I stuck on my side of 17th. But like
I'm with you.
Yeah, Rowdy, Fats, Salty Dog, Gator City when it was Gator City, the Social after it was the Social. Like I worked at everyone on that strip.
All right, that's awesome, man. Glad to hear that. Sorry to go off on that tangent, Ed, that you know nothing about.
Yeah, look, I'm only about 3 hours south of you guys, but I felt like a million miles away. But it's all good. I'm actually from Ohio, so Southern talk doesn't bother me too much because I'm way out, fish out of water down here. So
right, you seem to be adapting well.
Yeah, I really had no choice. But it's fast paced, that's for sure. But yeah, dude. Honestly, I was interested. When you were talking, if you started it, how was your collection before that? As far as with the transition from the collection to, one doesn't just have all animals. You know what I'm saying? In order to sell like that kind of magnitude. So how did that transition work from personal to
professional
shop?
Yeah. So if you mean before the first store, I probably had like 30 or 40 animals at my house. And I had been gearing up. Like I probably had 20 that I considered like my babies at that time, because for 6 months to a year before opening the store, I was kind of gearing up. If I came across something that I thought was like, oh man, that's going to look good in the store one day, I would get it, not because it's a dream species I wanted to keep in my reptile room, but because it was something I thought would be a good animal to open the store with. So when we first opened, like I contacted every breeder and every go-between and every person I knew who sold animals, and I filled the store with mostly my own stuff and a couple of groups of clutches of other stuff. Like I got some jungle carpet pythons and some sulcata tortoises and stuff from breeders I knew. But a lot of those first animals were straight from my house, and had been cared for by me for like the past 6 months to a year before that. So
and a little bit of everything as far as turtles, snakes, and even as far as bait, like mice and rats, and then good stuff, fish,
all the feeders. And I spent a good deal of time networking with all of the vendors and all the distributors for all of those products too, and like in workshopping what was going to be the best deal and who was going to be able to get it to me like consistently, and working out my scheduling for orders. Listen, I knew it was going to be a lot of work to open my own business. I had no idea. Like if you had asked me then, I'd have been like, yeah, I'm totally prepared. Whatever comes, it's going to be fine. I'm ready for it all. And like, I was not. I'm happy I did it. I would not change it for the world, but I was not prepared for how difficult it is to open a retail reptile store.
Feeders slide under the radar in terms of what people realize you have to provide. Like,
absolutely,
you have a reptile store, you got to have food for them.
Absolutely,
and that's really slim pickings, man. When I transitioned from the ball pythons, out of the ball pythons, dude, it was hard to find good quality stuff. I was getting it from up north even. And
I'm super lucky that I have somebody who is like relatively local who provides me, especially when it comes to rodents, when it comes to rats, especially. I have somebody who is such a staple, and he's so reliable, and I wouldn't trade him for the world. And because all my other stuff comes from like pretty well-known companies, most of them do, if you're in that world, and like we hit all sorts of inconsistencies, dude. Like during this COVID thing, I've been off and on out of superworms for months, just because I can't, and mealworms and even crickets sometimes. And it's insane that like I go to order and they're like, we just can't give them to you, so good luck, tell your customers whatever. And what a lot of people don't realize is feeders are what pays your rent. I'm a feed store that happens to carry animals. Like feeders are absolutely the bread and butter of staying alive in this industry. At least in this town. I can't speak on pet shops in Miami, but in this town it's feeders.
Well, you're talking about consistency and residual. I mean, that's what it is. The people need to keep coming back, and just like you get your first animal, but it might be a couple months before you get your second, and then even if so, you got to be really one of those passionate guys or gals that we'll just start like getting a little bit of everything, but
Yeah.
it's kind of far and few between that you can't rely on as far as, income.
Yeah.
Though.
Exactly. And not to mention, like, even the other products surrounding those animals, like dry goods, you're changing a bulb, what, twice a year? You're changing substrate, what, 4 to 10 times a year, depending on what substrate you're using. That's not that consistent compared to a feeder that you're in there every week for that feeder. So that's like definitely the bread and butter.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense. One thing I was going to ask is, what do you think has been one of your biggest challenges in opening up your first store?
The biggest challenges. Oh man. That's like looking up at 3 different mountains and from the bottom and trying to
Hey, you
guess
can
which.
tell us all 3, man. It doesn't matter.
I mean, one thing that
one thing
that first came to mind for me was overhead. I mean, first capital. It's like,
oh, dude, I searched for exterior capital for a long time. And it was a real hard sell for some people to like invest in a store, like a retail reptile store, especially when there was already one in town. And I didn't want to necessarily like bet the farm on it, but it came to a point where I had kind of exhausted all my other options. And then I went to my family and I was like, guys, I believe in this. I believe in this vision. This is what I want to do with my life. I want to use this as a platform to do all the wildlife education I've always wanted to do. Are you with me? Because if you're with me, it means we're betting the farm. And my grandmother, actually, who is the sweetest woman to ever walk the earth, said basically, let's bet the farm. And my family kind of went all in with me on this. Yeah. And so we pinched together every penny that we had basically. And she was my angel investor that kind of, I'm still cripplingly in debt to her. Don't get it twisted. I'm a year in, so I still owe her a lot of money.
Do you think as far as, I mean, hearing that kind of thing after you exhausted everything, do you think that drove even more of a passion in you that, like, not just some exterior, but your family?
Absolutely.
I mean,
I tell people anytime they want to have this conversation with me about like where the funds came from and stuff like that, I'm like, listen, dude, if I default on a loan with the bank, my credit's ruined, but I can go get a job flipping burgers and I can pull myself back up on my bootstraps. The nature of my investment, if I fail, me and my family fail. So like you want to talk about fire, there is no fire greater than my family's livelihood also rides on how well I do. And so I'm like, so that's all the inspiration I need to stay driven is that my family depends on me. So
because I heard you when you were talking initially when we started, is that the we that you were referring to?
I assume it had to have been
family wise, because it was just a key thing that I was like picked up on. Like, usually say I and you say we. I'm like, okay, there's a little bit something more in depth to that. So man, that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
We kind of have talked a little bit about your first store. Can you go ahead and tell us a little bit about your second store? Because as a Gainesvillian, that was kind of a surprise to me.
It was a surprise for a lot of people. It was kind of came out of the blue for a lot of people, and it was in the works for a lot longer than a lot of people realized.
Okay.
I opened up.
Can you give a little backstory on why it was a surprise? Like, the nature of the other reptile store, rather.
Yeah. So anyone who's familiar with my 2 locations is probably familiar with the fact that my 34th Street location used to be Hogtown Reptiles, and it was Hogtown Reptiles for, gosh, how long?
20-something years, I think they said.
Oh, dude. In some form or fashion, that business has been in this town for, like almost 2 decades, or if not 2 decades. It's been in that exact spot for around a decade, if I'm not mistaken.
As long as I've been in town.
Exactly. I was a customer there when I was a little kid. Well, when I moved back up here for like middle school, I was a customer there. And I opened up across town on the northwest side, and they're on the southwest side. I opened up, and I was doing good, but like I was definitely first year business against like an established 10-year business. And then like a few months into us both existing, like a little birdie came and told me that the other owner or the owner of the other store kind of had thoughts of going in a different direction. Like his passions lied elsewhere and he wanted to do other things. And he had sort of been shopping around the idea of moving on for a long time and just hadn't had the right person come along. And as much as it was like, oh man, enemy territory, like, am I going to show my face in that plaza? At the same time, I was like, I can't pass up that opportunity if that's true. You know, if there's a way that I can facilitate this expansion, like I have to do it. And so I made my way over there one morning, early in the morning, and I knocked on his door, and he and I had a chat, and he was like, listen, man, I've had a bunch of people come my way to try to do this, and it hasn't worked out yet. You know, what makes you think you're any different? Like, you got to show me whatever. And then 6 months later, you know, I won't get into the nitty gritty of our interpersonal relationship, but 6 months later, dude, there was an exchange. there was an exchange, and I believe he has started another business in the area too. So if y'all want to check out Chris Glass's, I think it's a food truck. I'm not sure 100% of the name of the business, but it's like food truck based, and it's really, really cool. So yeah, he basically like passed me the torch. He was like, hey man, you know, I've done this for however long, and I see the fire in you, and we worked out a deal, and he let me take over. And I'm hopefully gonna, like, you know, coming out of COVID, my goal, you know, if and when we get back to normal, is to really like bring a new standard to this town, you know, because I come from a generation that is more aware of our impact on these animals and more aware of our impact on the natural world around us, and more aware of the details surrounding the livelihood of these animals. And so I think because I know it, because I have this information, I'm obligated to raise that standard. I'm obligated to not be a PetSmart or a Petco or a, you know, whatever, where I'm putting green iguanas in 10-gallon enclosures with, you know, just a heat bulb, you know, like it's time to educate people. And that's my whole platform. So,
no, that's awesome, man. I got to say, I guess the bigger surprise for me was seeing how let me get the right word, how quickly it seemed to the outside of going from one store to two stores.
Oh yeah.
Like, it just was like, dang. They just opened.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dang, now there's no more a hog town. Like, what do we call it, man? Like,
yeah, dude.
Google hasn't fully fixed it yet, man.
No, Google still. I have to tell people all the time. I'm like, oh, if you want my north address, you type in Gator City Reptiles. If you want my south address, just type in Hogtown. Like, it still pops up. So.
And I was like, oh man. No, but I mean, you've definitely given us a lot of information, man. I'm curious if we can go and kind of talk about your interest, reptile specific. We've talked a lot about your business. Like, I know when we promoted this podcast, you mentioned the false water cobras. Could you tell us a little bit more about those and why that's your passion?
So, okay, he'll love this story too. My initial interest in false water cobras was like not the most, I don't know, it was kind of a bro sort of like arrogant interest, because I was at the Venomous Herpetology Symposium in Zoo, Miami, what would be a couple years ago now, with a good buddy of mine, Derek, who works with the Rattlesnake Conservancy. I believe you guys are familiar with him, or you at least know who he is.
Yeah, I do. He's in town.
Yeah, he's a good dude. And we were sitting around like, and I consider myself younger even than 2 years ago. And we were sitting around and I was like, man, you know, I don't have my hot permit yet. What's the most venomous thing I can keep without my hot permit, you know? And because I'm just thinking like a kid, basically. And he was like, dude, honestly, I think it'd probably be false water cobras. Like, if I had to just put it out there, the hottest thing you can keep without a venomous permit. And I was not, hey, my boy, that's him who's commenting. I was like, man, you know, I'm not super familiar with that species, but I looked up some pictures of them like that. They look really cool. And then I kind of kept my eye out for a while after that. And one of the most renowned Florida breeders of false water cobras, it must have been like 6 months later, he was getting out of it. Ken Robertson is his name. And he sold me his last like breeding female. And to me at that time, it was just kind of like a personal animal that I wanted in my collection, because like kind of as like a showpiece, I guess. And then when I tell you I fell in love with the species, dude, I fell in love with this species. They are probably my single favorite species of snake now on the planet. Like I've still got some dream species out there, but I love false water cobras. I've never kept a more charismatic, intelligent snake in my entire life, and now I've got 6 of them, and I love them. In fact, I've got a clutch that should be hatching like yesterday. So I should have 8 babies popping their heads out. They might be hatching right now. But I am they're my passion species at the moment, and I hope to be like one of the next big guys in false water cobras. I love them.
Wow.
Okay. I'm not a snake guy. You know, we've talked a little bit about that. Can you tell us, like, in terms of size, max length, like, what's cool about them to you?
Oh yeah, they're so most of the time you're going to see them in like the 6-foot range. That's like kind of the upper echelon of your average one you'll see. But like there are some random monsters out there. Like I've heard people saying they get like 8 foot. I know my biggest. I have a tank of a female right now, and she's 6.5. If she's an inch, she might be 7. Like she's a big girl. And they're like they have such a unique pattern. In my opinion, you know, the back end is kind of banded like a lot of other snakes have, but their front end, like where their head is from their head to their neck, like the upper third of their body, has one of the most unique patterns I've ever seen. And of course, they flare that hood out like a hog nose on steroids. You know, they're huge because they're humongous and they're so lively and they're so active, and a lot of them have attitude, and they just like they're fascinating snakes. And they are rear fanged, so they're I'm gonna catch flack for this if I get it wrong, but they're a Pistoglyphus, I'm pretty sure, which means they have rear fangs, fixed rear fanged colubrid. And so they are, you know, venomous, but it's not a very efficient delivery system. And the venom itself has some of the same protein complexes as like canebrake rattlesnakes. That's what they say. But, you know, the studies are still very preliminary, and their delivery system is absolutely terrible. So you really got to get chewed on to get any like effects of the venom. They're not really medically significant. But there have been reports of some people having some kind of nasty reactions to them. I personally just don't get bit. That's you know, best practices, and you don't end up getting bit.
So you treat them as still like venomous
I would,
with the respect of.
Absolutely. Anyone who hey, thank you, Derek, for the fact check. I was right. So anyone who keeps them, I would recommend, like, especially if you're new to keeping mean snakes, absolutely treat them venomous. Treat them as if they are venomous and medically significant venomous, if for no other reason than the fact that their bite hurts. Like it's not like they got like, if you've ever been bit by a Crebo or an indigo or any sort of dry mark-on species, it's a lot like that. Like their bite, they got big, awful teeth, and it does not feel good. I have been bit one time, and it was a full mistake, and I will never get bit again. So
making Cody want a snake anymore, man.
Yeah, right. Oh, that's right.
Come on, hey, one of them hatchlings, your daughter has a name on her, man.
No, man. Maybe Chantz will help me get over my fear of snakes when he gives me this private tour, man.
We won't start with the false water cobras. We'll start with the corn snakes and the ball pythons.
You gotta start with the cobra, bro, and then work your way down a little bit, you know.
Hey, I'm gonna tell you, man. Though I think they're reticulated pythons you have in the North store.
Yeah, I got a couple.
I'm staying away from those too, man.
Yeah, hey, listen, my big girl, she's intimidating. She was owned by another guy who's sort of in the area. His name's Paul McIntyre. He works out with the Reptile Preservation Institute. He was their papa before I was their papa, and they are he fed them well, man. They are intimidating big snakes. I don't know.
How big?
Do what now?
How big?
Well, my biggest girl, she's a Sun Tiger retic. He said 14 feet. I haven't like put tape to her yet, but like I think she's over 14 feet. She's big, and she's every pound of like 60 pounds, if not heavier. She's a big girl.
Yeah, dude. I remember, man, when I did, you know, worked with a lot of the raptors and all that, you know, venomous and stuff, did animal handling in college. Our teacher actually had his own personal collection, and I'm telling you, he had 2. He had one albino Burmese and a normal Burmese, and Taz, 18 feet of pure, just the coil alone would fill half of this room, the coiled up, and there was like 10 of us in around circles, and there was still 10 feet hanging out. I mean, dude.
Yeah.
fed it fetal goats. Man, talk about yanking your arm in. I was like, dude, that's a
a
that's a
lot of
big
snake.
one. But I mean, but also, because you go, you see them in the feeding mode, but then also, I mean, as long as you're conditioned and work with your animals, though, I mean, they're not say docile, but they're just as depending. You
Oh
can get
yeah.
what you get, but as far as conditioning wise, I mean, he wouldn't hurt a fly as far as
Yeah.
but watch
Yeah,
out.
you learn your animal. You learn how to read their behaviors, and you learn how to interpret what they're going to do next. And like if you have one that's not in food mode and is not in defense mode, like especially Burmese pythons, they can be complete slugs, but like in a good way, like total lazy puppy dogs. But
Yeah.
to put it in perspective, the retic, the big girl that I have, she's a sweetheart. She's never given me any indication that she's gonna tear me up. But at the same time, I don't handle her alone. I
Yeah.
wouldn't. I wouldn't. If no one else was in the shop, I wouldn't just go. You know what? I'm going to take out, big girl. I'll wait till someone was there.
Yeah. Just
How
the
big's the
respect
other
thing,
one?
man.
Both my berms are like right in the 10-foot range.
So it's a retic and 2 berms you have?
I have 3 retics and 2 berms.
Are they all in that store?
There's 4 stacked right there, and then I've got the one albino Burmese who's like kind of off on his own.
Okay.
Both my Burmese, my big granite girl, and my big albino male. I say big; they're like just over 10 feet. That's not huge by Burmese python standards. And then I've got my 2 male retics. One's like he's probably like pushing 12, I'd say, and the other one's probably like around 10 as well. Again, I haven't taken tape to them to like get an exact measurement, but off the top of my head, that's probably close to what they are. And then of course, big girl.
So how do you I'm curious, because I know a big part of, the opening and doing all this was, the shop and then also education. So how do you translate the education into it? Do you have certain days to where you do presentations or like how
Oh
does that
gosh,
what do you do? How does the formula work?
dude, I want to host events in the store so bad. That is like one of the next big goals for me. Right now, my main outlet for pre-COVID, my main outlet for education was school shows. Like I was doing probably like once a month. I was getting maybe twice a month. I was getting the opportunity to go do school shows, and honestly, like because I didn't have like a real platform built yet, I was just like nabbing the ear of anybody who would listen to me in the store. Like if someone came in and they were like, "Oh, that's a cool snake," I'd be like, "Do you want to know everything about that snake and why you should care about snakes?" So like I was really like I was in fact one of my managers actually like a couple months after the store opened, he's like, "Hey, listen, I know you love your vision and I know that these stores, like this is what you wanted to do. Let them walk through the door first. let them look around before you start like diving on them with all the info and the natural history and everything." So I had to like measure it because that's all I want to do, dude. If my bills were paid, and I could just have the platform, all I would do all day is talk to people about animals in general. Reptiles just happen to be like the specific interest that I have an outlet for.
Yeah.
But animals and wildlife in general, that's all I want to do is talk to people about that all day.
Now, is there a certain age group as far as when you were doing the schools and stuff that you usually tend to?
I think I kind of got just in my like small sample size, I think I leaned more towards younger kids, honestly, but that was more just like what was available. I certainly wasn't like I'm targeting this demographic, this age group. It was kind of like every time someone was like, "Do you want to do a show?" I was like, "Yes, I do want to do a show. Sign me up." I did one show for a private school where I was supposed to go in and do a show for like kindergarten, first grade, and second grade. And then they liked it so much. Like I was blocked off for like 30 minutes to do this little bit. And they liked it so much. It was a small enough school that they were like, "Hey, will you hang out for like another hour? And can we just bring the rest of the school in and will you do the presentation again?" And I was like, "Yeah, I guess." And so they and it was one of those private schools that does like K through graduating, K through 12. And so I presented at the same time to like third grade through 12th grade, and that was like a challenge, but I think I did it pretty well.
Now, see, dude, that's awesome because I just got done doing Wednesday one of my first book readings because I self-published children's book, and
Nice.
I was able to bring a bunch of my turtles in and actually compensate a book reading to interactive. So putting 2 and 2 together, you're able to actually kind of get a story, but also get that actual representation. Because I mean, dude, when I was a kid, my dad used to bring, he didn't have animals, but he had like deer and stuffed. But it was still cool, the coolest thing in the world. But the reason why I even went to school is that the hands-on thing, you just can't read in a book, man. You can't get that experience. So like,
Absolutely.
especially at the younger kids, I mean, oh my gosh, you get them young, and it's not about like, if you get that one kid that just absolutely is like becomes one of us, great, fantastic.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing, like I'm sure like that's why you're so loving of just talking about them is appreciation, man. Like
Absolutely.
appreciation will go so much further than just one person's passion. And I firmly believe, because I mean, those are the people that pass our bills or do this or do that, that just for an understanding, like Ryan McVeigh, when we had him in, he was like, look, when we go in, because he knows, the guy with the US Arc and everything, he's like, look, we don't go in and just bash people about, especially when they don't know. You take it as in like, look, they don't know, and like, okay, well, this is your time to actually show them and
show them something. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly, man. Because when I was doing a lot with the aquatic and wildlife biology in the field, so many people I worked with the public, and they just didn't even understand about. I'm talking about even rodents and living in palm trees, and just the bare basics of why they're even having issues with these animals. Is like once they get to know that, they're like, oh, okay, I might not like the animal in general, but at least you get an understanding of the animal.
Absolutely, dude. And most fear, like almost with very few exceptions, most fear can be traced to ignorance too, and not like
just not
willful,
knowing.
Exactly, not willful ignorance, but like this the lack of ever having been exposed to the right information.
Yes,
where
in the right way.
Exactly. You're beholden to myths and tales that have been passed down and mystery and it goes bump in the dark sort of thing.
Yeah.
And so your natural inclination is to fear it if you do not understand it. But once you understand something, even if you still don't like it, you will not be as afraid of it, and you can start to understand why it might be important, or why it might be important to other people, and why you might be able to take a more, a less negative and maybe even just more an indifferent look towards things like snakes on your property and stuff like that. So yeah, it's huge.
Yeah, of course, and the biggest thing also about that is getting to know that actually that animal has, the way, even my book I'm starting, my second book, and just, even when I, like, I'm sure you, like, a lot of your animals have names. It's like, once you get to put an animal to a name, it's like, look, it's a living thing, and then they're like, so then once you call it a name, it's almost like an instant connection. You almost get a kind of a connection that you wouldn't just get that's a snake, or even that's a python.
Exactly. It does breathe a little life into those creatures for people sometimes who view them as just like more like static parts of the environment around them. So yeah, absolutely. I agree. 100%.
I gotta ask something. I've been looking at whatever is behind you for like an hour now, bro. What are you keeping there?
Well, so actually, this is 2.0. This is version 2 of this enclosure. It's an 8-foot by, I think, like 3 foot deep and like 4 foot tall on a 2-foot stand, something along those lines. I built it for a trio of tiger rat snakes that I have, Spilotes pilatus, and I planted it. It's bioactive, and I had scale, which is a like a plant parasite. I had scale tear all my plants up. Like it came through and just killed all my plants that I planted, because apparently I didn't do a good job quarantining for scale. My snakes are fine. They're all healthy and good, but like all my plants died. And I was like, well, that's not what I had intended. So I took my snakes out. I put them in little individual enclosures for now, and I took all the plant matter and all the wood out of it, and I let this like die basically. And I let all my isopods and springtails just destroy all the wood and leaf litter and stuff that was in there. And it was I had a gigantic isopod enclosure for like 8 months. It was nothing but little bugs or crustaceans, little tiny crustaceans. And then like me and my missus, who lives here with me, were like looking at it the other day, and we were like, it's time. Quarantine's over for this cage. It's time to put some plants back into it. And so hopefully, like, I'm thinking like the end of this week, I might throw them back in there. So you'll see gigantic, like 6 foot plus black and yellow slender snakes, tree snakes behind me is what you'll see.
That's awesome.
After. Right now, nothing.
Now, question: did you, as far as even with the shop goes, because you had to, get very, very I would say you had to do a lot of the work yourself, manual work. You didn't have a lot of capital, so I'm sure, like, even when it came to your cages and enclosures, did you build and do like most of them even in your shop as well? And
Yeah. So a lot of the enclosures in my store are prefabbed enclosures that I got from either Exoterra or Vision cages and things like that, which I clawed and scraped to collect Vision cages and enclosures over like the year or two before we opened up. Like every time someone was like, yo, $20 for this old enclosure that I don't want anymore, I was like, let me do it. And I took it home and like cleaned it and like had it set aside. And I was like, one day I want to put you in the store. And then when I opened up, I had a bunch of those, and I made a pretty big like Exoterra, where I got a line of Exoterra line of Exoterra enclosures for like the shelves there. But me and my manager put the shelves together. Me and my manager and some friends put the like bamboo that you see up on the shelves. That was my girlfriend's idea. She was wonderful. This enclosure behind me, I built 100% by myself, no help from anybody, from the ground up, scratch, sweat of my own brow. I'm kidding. If if Alejo heard me say that, he'd skin me. No, I have a very good friend of mine named Alejo, who's a vet student at UF, and he helped me build this one. And by helped me, I mean basically did everything. And I was like holding screws for him, and I was like, hey, do you need this now? So yeah, I hope he's watching this. If not, I'm going to tag him later in it so that he can watch that part, because yeah, absolutely, he helped me a bunch with this.
What about that Cayman lizard setup you told me about? Did you build that, or did Alejo build that too?
Yeah, so Alejo built that, and I don't think so. This is impressive. I love this enclosure. The Cayman lizard enclosure, it was an interesting concept, but its first iteration is not as functional as we would like it to be. It came together and then didn't quite hold together as well as it should have. So it's not.
Can you tell the viewers what your vision was and why it doesn't hold together, rather?
Some of the wood warped and the mesh was too wide, and he could actually fit through it. Turns out, like, he could bend the mesh a little further than it was and then fit himself through it. And the door kind of like warped and got off kilter. So the vision was for like,
and that's because the Cayman lizards are pretty aquatic, right?
Yes. So they're like, if you give them equal opportunity, they are going to be in the water like most of the time. And if they're not in the water, they're going to be basking up on a branch. So they're semi-aquatic, semi-arboreal. They don't spend a lot of time just sitting on the ground. And so my vision was, it's 8 feet tall, it's 6 feet long, and it's 4 feet deep. And my vision is, for a semi-arboreal with a huge 400-gallon tank as his water feature, basically, and like a 2x4 space of land, basically, if he does want to sit on the land. And that part, the frame is basically there, but we got to go back and redo a lot of it to perfect it for him. So in the meantime, he's in a temporary enclosure too, and I can't wait to get him, because he's big. He's like 38 inches. He's a big Cayman lizard. Most people don't successfully keep them to that size in captivity, and he's been really, really good. The only thing he won't eat is shrimp. Most of the time, that's like one of the first things people get Cayman lizards on, and mine's like, I don't want them. So we just feed him.
So what does he eat? Oh, snails, and what else?
Oh, dude, in the wild, their diet is like 95% snails, if not higher. Like, they eat almost nothing but
molars, man.
Oh, dude, it's a big relative to the apple snail. I don't think it's not an apple snail itself, but I think it's in the same like clade, and they are gigantic, and they have to have incredible jaw pressure and these big peg-like teeth. So their teeth aren't particularly sharp, but they're like walnut crushers, basically, and they're built to just destroy those shells and eat those snails. So in captivity, though, we just feed him Zoom Ed Canna snails and other like aquatic snails that I get from the fish shop and stuff like that. And fish. He likes fish too.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, dude. Cayman lizards probably actually, if I had to ever get a lizard, has always been my dream.
Dude, they're so cool.
I mean, I've always grown up seeing them, at the pet shows, and I'm like, man,
Mhm.
just you're talking about that bright red head, and just looks exactly. If you can mix any kind of crocodilian with a lizard, dude, that's a
That's
vote in
what
my
you get.
book. Like, come on,
E-
man, like you can't
exactly.
get.
Yeah. I can't wait to, well, when I launch my own like sort of social media aspect of my brand, because everyone's doing it, I got to do it too, and I think it'll be an invaluable part of my platform for wildlife education. I cannot wait for his big self to be one of my like primary
Ambassadors.
ambassadors. That's the word I was looking for. A big ambassador animal, because he's so, and he's chill too. He has his moments. So he'll have days where he's like, "Don't touch me," but for the most part, he's a puppy, which is fantastic to ask in such a big animal with such a powerful bite. So,
Now, how long have you had him, and how old is he?
dude, I've actually only had him like a year. I didn't grow him, so I don't want to take credit where it's not due. He was established when I got him, and so I was lucky enough in that sense. There's actually a gentleman down like an hour and a half south of me who used to get fresh snails, like fresh from I'm pretty sure from where he's from, snails at a one of those like cultural food markets, basically,
Yeah.
like one of those ones where it's not like your Wonder Bread, it's stuff you can't find at Publix.
Yeah.
And they sold snails, and he got them from there. Well, that market closed down, and he was like, "Dude, I can't do justice to him without that market close by to me. I can't feed him what he needs to be fed, so I'm not going to do him an injustice by keeping him." And I reached out to him, and I was like, "Yes, sir, I will. I would love to to get a hold of him." And so I made the drive down and picked him up. So, and that was like about a year ago, I'd say.
That's awesome, man. I
Mhm.
think we've talked a little bit about different animals you keep. I'm curious, and I think we talked about it a little bit before we went live. What all permits do you have?
In my name,
Sure.
I have my class 3. I have 3 class 3s. I have one for my house. I have one for one shop, and I have one for the other shop. I have 3 class 3 permits. The one at my North store has the conditional species attached to it, which thank God I got it when I did, because of this whole revamp of conditional species in Florida thing that's coming down the pipe. Glad I got my big snakes when I did too, because it's going to be tough for people who want to work with those animals. But I got the conditional there. I've got just a regular old class 3 for reptiles at former Hogtown, and at my house I have a class 3 that covers reptiles, birds, mammals, pretty much any class 3 I want. We have a class 2 crocodilian permit at the North store as well, where you can keep alligators and caimans up to 4 feet in that enclosed space. But that's actually not in my name. That's in my manager's name, because he's the guy who has that permit. So I thanks to him for that.
So up to 4 feet, and then what?
Well, so basically the regulation is in a space under 2 acres. Like if the facility that it's kept on is under 2 acres, and someone with like really in-depth knowledge might come along and be like, actually it's 2.6 acres. Like, so, within reason, this is accurate, but there might be like a letter of the law that's a little different. Basically, it's if you have a property that's under 2 acres, you can only keep an alligator or a caiman up to 4 feet in that space. If it gets over 4 feet long, whatever its approved enclosure has to be on greater than 2 acres, basically. So it's going to take our little gator probably, depending on if we like power feed him, which we're not going to do, we're going to feed him at like a very healthy rate. It'll take him, 2 years or so to get 4 feet long, maybe more, maybe less. And so by that time, essentially what we're doing is, because the gator's in the store, I'm working with him towards my hours for my personal class 2 crocodilian permit. And then I'm on 5.5 acres out here. So I dredged a little pond. I built a little enclosure, sometime between now and him being 4 feet long. And I get a permit out here. And then I can not only put him out here and get a new baby for the store, I can start taking in gators that would otherwise be euthanized in the area. Because a lot of alligators, especially in South Florida, and I think it happens up here quite a bit too.
And most people don't even know that.
Exactly.
Like, I was doing, before this year, I was an aquatic biologist for the region, in Treasure Coast. And dude, I mean, every day I was out on the boat. I mean, gators left and right, and it was mostly in communities and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And every time I'd be launching or coming back from a boat or something, a guy would come up to me and He said Gator, you know, see him, and well, you know, over time, you know, I've seen, you know, many people have like, yeah, we called, you know, on the Gator, and you know, have them, you know, get it, you know, so they can relocate it. I'm like, sir, you do realize that they don't relocate, and dude, they're most nine times out of 10, their face goes. I'm like, yeah.
Yep, it's an
Just
unfortunate
not
thing. If
not that there
you,
won't be another Gator to fill that spot, but
of course, yeah,
just to let you know, because there we go again about the whole just they don't know, and you can't blame them,
exactly.
so I don't get all mad and irritated. But and part of me is like, gosh, man, you know. But it's like if one
All
other
you can,
person,
yeah, all you can do is be like when you hit those opportunities, just educate, you know,
yeah,
and do it in like a polite and respectful manner. Anyone who grew up in my time frame watching Animal Planet as diligently as I did as a child, probably is familiar because of all the Animal Cop shows. I knew from a young age that nuisance gators were mostly euthanized, just because I would watch, you know, Animal Cops Miami or whatever it was, and they'd have a gator wrangler, and he'd be like, "Oh, we're gonna take him off and euthanize him." And of course, 10-year-old me's like, "No, don't do it! No, give him to me." And so now, like, hey, if I get a nice gator pond that can comfortably house 10 gators or something like that, then I can at least, for 9 of them plus my guy, be that home, because they will. So nuisance gators can be relocated to facilities if they have the space to take them. There's several facilities in South Florida that do, but the problem is there's so many nuisance gators, they're usually like at capacity.
Oh yeah.
So, but anytime
What's
they've got
capacity
space
go? How
available,
does that stipulation go, capacity wise?
it just depends on the enclosure you've got, essentially.
Okay.
I think your permit, unless you file for like a special one, which I'm not super familiar with, but I think your base level permit allows you to have like 25 individuals of that class, which again, if I'm off a couple, don't, you know,
But
sorry.
that's still a heavy dose because I mean you're talking about 25 mountains of mouth to feed. It's like
Absolutely. Yeah. Make sure you've got the resources to do it. So, but as long as you're within your permit, it's
yeah,
basically what you've got approved enclosures for. So if
gotcha.
you've got a pond that can hold 10, your cap is 10.
Yeah,
So
gotcha. So what about with all this talk, you know, snakes
Hey,
and
you
crocs and
didn't
everything?
mention, bro. You got a Cayman too.
I
So
do.
what,
I have a little spectacle caiman. Yeah.
oh dude, I'm jealous about that, man.
That's a weird story too. That kind of got thrown on my doorstep, but yeah, it's
Literally.
a, yeah. But we're glad to have him.
Yeah.
We're glad to have him. He's awesome too. So he's a part of the crew now.
Wow, that's so awesome, dude. Yeah, I was gonna ask, you know, do you have any turtle species that, you know, between the shop and personal?
In the shop we do. I don't have any turtles in the personal collection because I don't think,
Yet.
well, that's not quite true. I have a 650-gallon stock pond on my property, and it's kind of like the halfway house for unwanted yellow belly sliders. So I will get the occasional yellow belly, and he'll live with me for a while out there until someone comes along and they're like, man, I just need a yellow belly slider for my pond, or something like that, you know. So I'm a halfway house for yellow belly sliders for the most part. But as far as like personal passion animals, I don't have any myself. And it's only
We're
because,
working on that, man. We're working on it.
yeah, Cody is working on that, and he's trying to convince me, and he's doing a really good job. There are turtles. If I had all the money and time in the world, there are a list of turtles that I would keep myself. But the amount of
Work.
work and the amount of care and setup that you have to put into a turtle to do it right, yeah, then it is a pain to clean. She's absolutely right. Turtles can be gross. That's my significant other. So they to give them the proper setup requires so much from you that I would not want to do them an injustice. Like I wouldn't want to keep a turtle in a half baked enclosure, you know, at my house. If I wanted to keep a turtle, I would want to give them all out.
Oh yeah.
There are 2 species of turtle out there that I am completely weak for, and I would probably sell my soul to have one day. It's not the right time for me, but there are 2 out there that I drool every time I see one, and I absolutely love them, and will never stop loving them.
Dot.
Oh, you guys want to know?
We're ready. Yeah.
Oh, you guys
I
okay.
know one.
Yeah,
I've been waiting for the other.
Cody knows one because I literally, like, right before we started this podcast, I hit him up and I was like, dude, that is such a pretty turtle. Like because he's got one. ornate diamondback terrapins in general, like the entire all those subspecies. I think there's like 6 or 7 subspecies. I think every single one of them is absolutely immaculate. They're probably my favorite like traditional turtle species, and I would kill to have one. I love them so much. They're something I would.
You don't gotta probably go that extreme. I mean, you just gotta go down the road apparently.
Yeah, right. He's in town. Yeah, no, believe me, it's I have to practice self-control right now because I don't have a setup for one. Diamondback terrapins. And the other one is honestly super obvious once you think about it. It's the king of turtles. It is the holy mecca of turtles, and it's the Fly River, dude. Pig-nosed turtles. Oh my gosh.
You had one right next door to you, man.
Dude, you have no idea how long I have spent collectively staring at that turtle at Aquatropics. I sit in there and I just look at him. Oh, I used to. So he's actually not in there now. And
I found that out. I've been pissed. I've gone a couple times like, where the hell is the Fly River? I don't want to look at these big turtle. I mean, these big fish, man.
Yeah, where's my dude? He was in here. Dude, when he took him home, I was in there like the next day and I was like, Arthur, where'd he go? And he was like, I took him home. You know, it's fine, whatever. He's still with me. It's all good. But like, I was like, where's my turtle, man? Like, I love Fly River turtles. I could watch them just swim for hours. So one day when I've got
that's my number one too, man. That's my number one.
Dude,
you're talking about a legit have to do justice on that. No brainer, man.
Oh, exactly.
You probably couldn't have picked a more aquatic.
The sea turtle is about the only more aquatic turtle I could have picked.
Yeah, dude.
No,
yeah.
I remember when Aquatropics first got it because I used to go there and, you know, get aquatic plants for my turtles. I don't really keep fish, but I get my mosquito fish. And when I saw it, my jaw dropped. Oh. And I remember Arthur was like, yeah, man, Fly River turtle. It's like a $5,000 to $10,000 turtle. And I was like,
oh, yeah.
One day I'm going to own one. And
one of these days.
It's still on my list, man. I don't know if you go on like fauna classifieds often, but every time I see a Fly River turtle, I start drooling and I'm just like,
yeah, you gotta wipe the drool off your phone screen real quick. Yeah, dude, I'm on fauna all the time looking at animals I will never own. It's like I'm like, man, I don't have that kind of scratch.
Dude, I'm not even gonna lie. Like the guy locally, he's on 2 acres and he has like, I don't even know, like 5, 6 big, huge ponds, you know, in ground, and just throws all this food out there, and all you see is, dude, Madagar and, you know, the Fly Rivers. I'm talking about massive Fly Rivers, dozens of them all in there, dude. I'm like, oh, like
all I need is one.
Those have to be big enclosures then, because
they're a monster, man.
Yeah, one of the challenges I've always heard is that Fly Rivers will tear each other up when you co-hop them.
Half the ones on fauna have like ass bites out of them, you know, like, oh, there's a little nip, and I'm like, nope, mine has to be perfect if I'm gonna say
mm-hmm.
Yeah, not a little discount.
Now, my number 2 is actually painted river terrapins. So I don't know how much you know about that species, but they also get massive.
Really? Are they? They're not North American, are they?
No, they're in Asia, but the males, their head turns like white and they get a red stripe on them. I don't know if you watch like Camp Cannon and things like that. He has one.
Yeah, okay. I know who he is, and I've seen some videos, but dude, honestly, for wanting to do social media, I'm never on social media. Like I'm on Facebook all day, but that's just because I'm keeping up with my friends' gossip. But like I'm like never on YouTube. But I have seen pictures of the turtle you're describing. Yeah, they're absolutely beautiful.
So as far as, you know, you're pretty, as far as you know, you don't have to do a lot, I guess, a lot of promoting, I guess the right words I want to say, to be able to be consistent shop wise. But, you know, what's your next kind of breaker to be able to actually kind of get a little bit beyond that, you know, breaker point, to be able to branch out a little bit more?
So and some people have asked me this question. I've had to like, you know, illuminate the answer. My goal is to not own like a chain of pet stores. I didn't. Oh, sorry, y'all, to forgive me my indigestion.
Oh, you're good, man.
I didn't want to own 2. To be quite honest with you, I didn't want to manage 2 different locations. They're a means to an end for me in the most positive way you could use that phrase. Like I want to use them to pay my bills so that I can use them as a relevant platform as well to do my wildlife education and spread my message. You know, I could have stayed a bartender and attempted to do wildlife education as well, but the difference is the thing that's making me money, that's you know, making sure I have a roof over my head, is also directly relevant to my actual passion goals, and so I can use that thing like doubly. It serves two purposes for me, and it's kind of like a headquarters and a nexus, because the next step for me is online, to be quite honest with you, online and like genuine involvement in boots on the ground conservation. So my next two, like the two forks in my empire, if you'll call it that, are going to be like some sort of online presence so that I can reach people in the same manner that you see all these other, you know, YouTubers do. Yes, I'm working on it, Devin. That is the next step, brother. Absolutely. I love that guy. I got to get a YouTube channel. I got to take social media more seriously, because that is how we consume media these days. No one watches network television anymore. No one's watching. And I grew up watching Animal Planet, but let's be honest, dude, the viewership for like Animal Planet and Nat Geo and stuff like that on like traditional cable television is a fraction, a mere pittance of what it used to be. And now the new medium for all these kids who like, these kids who are coming up who are just like me, you know, I grew up in a generation where it was right there on TV, but now for these kids, they're the same kids as I was. They're the same kids who could be just as inspired by the wild world around them, but they're on a different platform. They're on social media. And so to be even just one of the many voices that is pushing the right message is kind of my goal, because I look at guys who are doing it great. I look at guys, the social media aspect. I have no comment on them as people, but the guys who are doing it right, like Brian Barczyk and Jay Brewer and all these, and Camp Kennan and all these people who are like reaching everybody, you know, they have their own little brand, but they've nailed how to reach people. And I want to bring a quality, genuine, informed education message that's still interesting. You know, it has to be interesting. It can't be NPR. It's got to be interesting to watch if kids are going to watch it. But I want to have that platform where it's like, hey, you know, this is why you should be inspired by the world around you, and not just like, oh, hey, watch me get bit by it, because there's way too many people who do that too. Like, I want genuine information and amazement, and it's a weird portmanteau to try to do, but that's a huge next step for me. And then the other step is using my platform to shout out organizations like Ashton Biological Preserve right here outside of town. Like, I try to do as much work as I can that my time will allow me for them. And other like the Rattlesnake Conservancy is a great example. I've, as much as I can, been able to work with them in the past too. Like, for example, with the Venomous Herpetology Symposium, organizations like that who have like a different niche than I'm going to end up having, but just as good of a cause and message, like being able to push them and give them a platform and network and be a hub for that is a huge next step for me.
It's funny that you said that. Probably about a year ago, I was at our local FedEx ship center, and I ran into Cody, the guy with Reptile Preservation Institute.
Yeah, Cody Bartolini, absolutely.
Yeah. And my name's Cody too. And he saw me with a box, and I saw him with a box, so we got to talking. And I mean, I stood out there, and it had to be like October, November, and we stood out there for like an hour just talking. And I got to be honest, man, I didn't realize like we had people in those niches of venomous reptiles. Like, I mean, I hear venomous reptiles in Florida. I'm like, oh, okay, you keep rattlesnakes. But like he was in depth. He's like, man, I have 32 species. I don't worry about the North American. I was just like,
yeah. Dude, like, Reptile Preservation Institute, they have quite a facility out there. I was lucky enough to be able to go out there during Carpet Fest this past year, and like they're doing such a good job out there, man. Like they are.
I'm trying to get them on the podcast too. I know he's busy right now, but he has said that he's interested. So
one of the busier people I've come in contact with. He's about as busy as I am. So basically we never talk. That's what you can take away from that. So, but yeah, no, he's good people, man. And the people he works with out there, Paul McIntyre and Derek, who we were just talking about, are both work out there as well.
I might get it. I know I got Derek tentatively on the schedule. I might got to get the other two, just to get that message out, man. Like, even though snakes aren't my thing, but like they're important too. Their conservation matters.
Absolutely.
I feel like
every spoke in the wheel of life, every spoke.
Yeah.
I feel like snakes get a bad rep as it is. Like you see a turtle and you see a snake crossing the road. Which one are you actually going to help? You know?
Right.
And I'm not
absolutely.
saying to go out there and pick up a rattlesnake or anything, but like,
I don't recommend it.
no, there's a lot more people that'll swerve their car to hit a snake than they will to hit a turtle. And so like people need to be informed on that, you know?
Absolutely. It's funny you mentioned that too. That's one of the reasons why I am so heavily geared towards snakes too. It's not because I'm passionate about them. Don't get me wrong. I love snakes. They're one of my favorite living beings on this planet. But the reason why I usually harp on snakes specifically is because they're the one that have the worst reputation, besides like spiders, maybe. Like that's about the only other creature I can think of that gets more flack than a snake.
Roach is a close one.
Yeah, right. Roaches, exactly. But they do well enough. We don't have to. I mean, there's some species out there that actually do need our help, but for the most part, roaches do fine. But that's why I have to disproportionately spend a lot of my time on snakes specifically, is because they're like one of the most demonized groups out there, and for no good reason other than lack of knowledge. That's really the only reason out there. Because and I have this theory that is probably completely unfounded and not scientific, but I have this theory that like in the past, in previous generations, it served humanity a great benefit to completely hate snakes, to just like every snake you saw, avoid, kill, or otherwise remove yourself from, because we didn't have medical technology, we didn't have field guides, we didn't have compendiums of taxonomic research suggesting like the relationships and what this snake can do and what it can do, what it can't do to you. Like there wasn't any of that. So it was like, oh, you see snake. If you're not afraid of snake, you get bit by snake, you die, And so and so it served humans very well to have that aversion. We were like, just if we don't go near it, we survive, we procreate, and and we move on. But now in today's day and age, when we have access to the entirety of human knowledge at our fingertips, including what snakes live in your area, what their behavior patterns are, whether they're dangerous, and what you can do to not be in the path of their danger, which is basically just leave them alone. I don't think there's as much excuse as there used to be for that aversion. And yes, it served us at one point in our history, but now, we as a sentient race of people or creatures should be able to like move past that and understand that with information comes advancement. So we don't have to
most people are still living, especially kids, are living in the still phase of they're slimy, and it's like, golly.
You know what shocks me though? Yes, but I find a lot of it comes from the parents, dude. A lot of kids who come into my store, a lot of kids who come into my store, if they come in with a reptile loving parent, the kid loves reptiles, and people expect that. If they come in with a reptile hating parent, where like the parent broke down and let him get a leopard gecko, but otherwise hates reptiles and is like, ooh, snakes, the kid usually has that aversion to snakes. Like they're immediately like, oh God, I don't know, they're slimy. But if you have a parent who has like not instilled any specific virtue about snakes in them, I noticed that kids are just curious. Kids just want to know. They don't. A lot of them, the vast majority of the time, don't have that fear to start. And then, if they're given if they're given the window, then they are like, oh man, I just want to know about it. This is kind of cool.
Now, one thing I wanted to ask you is that, are you allowed to use your platform like in the shop to do like a weekly like show or a weekly this, or are you have the means to be able to do that like with your shop, or do you have to stay kind of, at where you're at shop wise, or just not the space?
I have theoretically at my North location, I definitely have the space to put on some sort of event, if it was something that wasn't like too many people. I'm looking down the road. One of my next big steps is actually more of like a home base of operations for the conservation side of it, where like and it'll be like more just to the outside of town, where I can hopefully do like events and seminars, and I can have groups from out of town, like the Rattlesnake Conservancy, come in and host events there, like more like a facility that is designed specifically for that. That's my next big goal. And then the shops will act more like forward operating bases, where you can come in and just get your crickets, but oh, did you say you like wildlife too? Well, let me point you in the direction of, where you can go if you are actually interested in that. So, but
Yeah.
I can theoretically, I can host small events in the shop too. The North shop specifically, the South shop does not have the space for that.
And
It's pretty much aisles of animals.
Yeah, it's not a very it's 1,200 square feet, and it's a skinny 1,200 square feet. So.
Oh, that's awesome, man. So you think you can actually do like I said, you want to do media and stuff, dude? Go like do an animal each day or every week, or kind of like just
Totally.
like do like either it's a video or whatever pictures. I mean, dude, you probably get the best means out of anyone, and you don't even got to talk about the animals. You can go as far as like the the splying of the bait, like crickets and all that stuff, and like the benefit of all that kind of stuff, and what most people don't even realize what's probably good for that animal and what's best option.
Totally. Yeah. Like species. So I had an idea to do species profiles when I first opened up, where like once a week or twice a month or something along those lines, I would like highlight a specific species and obviously start with the ones that are super common in the trade, like bearded dragons and leopard geckos and ball pythons or whatever, and go through like a little bit of natural history, a little bit of how to take care of them in captivity, a little bit of interesting facts about them, and what makes them thrive and whatever. And do that. I have been caught up running the businesses, especially through a global pandemic. So a lot of the projects, a lot of my personal passion projects haven't been able to like launch in any capacity that I'd like, but I'm also kind of limited on manpower. I've got my staff that has to run the store and me who has to dive in and run the store. And when I'm not running the store, I am doing everything else that keeps the store open. It's shocking how much someone has to do to make sure a business runs besides just punching things into a register. From the moment I wake up to the moment I go to sleep at night, someone wants something from me, be it the government or the utility company or my landlord or or a customer or a distributor or you name it, dude. The list goes on and on. It's a lot of work to keep that light on. So I don't get as much time as I'd like to do that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and that's it's crazy how you see some of those people like that actually do that kind of stuff, and put content out there like how you mentioned Brian Barczyk and some of those guys where people can have their own opinion, but regardless, you can't knock the fact that they're investing a lot of freaking time.
Yeah, and they're reaching people
to be able to give you something of substance to chew on, and it's like, I mean, how many people have so and so reached, and compared to you, not you, but like just not
in
you in
general,
personal, but like in personal, like if I say something about someone, well, what are you doing? Are you doing your part? Your part can look like totally different. It doesn't have to be reaching millions or thousands. It can be reaching your neighborhood. Boom. There you go.
Could have been emailing the governor.
Yeah, ouch. We need to do a lot of that. Dude, my part started with my family. It can start anywhere. Like I grew up in a family of and I actually said this on another podcast I was on recently, and they kind of took exception to it. They were like, we were not, but they were. My family were snake haters, except with the notable exception of my great grandfather. He was like the only person in my family that doesn't completely hate snakes. But the rest of my family were very like, only good snake's the dead snake sort of thing, which is a common phrase you'll hear.
Oh, yeah.
And I spent from the time I could speak eloquently, from the time I could make coherent thoughts until, a few years ago, I had to spend that entire amount of time convincing my entire rather large Southern family that snakes aren't the devil and they absolutely have a place and deserve our respect. And I've pretty much converted all of them. And if that's all I did, if all I did was convert my family to one less group of people who don't necessarily appreciate nature, that's a victory. That's absolutely a victory. And so your impact can be as big or as small as anyone's and still be important. I just hope to, I want my impact to be as big as I possibly can.
Well, I mean, I think given the time frame, given what what you've already got established, I mean, I say chew on what you got and then take your bigger bite when it comes, and like just you want to make sure you keep your passion in check, and and all the right variables that need to be in check, rather than taking a too big of a bite of here and then so many people, like even in the wildlife field, they lose their passion so much, even because it becomes daunting and monotonous, and
Yeah,
and because
absolutely.
you're always surrounded by it. Well, if you a lot of that has to do with balance, family,
Hmm.
and this and that. I mean, you keep in
Oh,
check
100%.
and you grow as it comes, and obviously you're proof that you're not afraid to take a risk, not just for the first initial, but the second that that, and that's a big obstacle that people will just, oh dude, no way, no, and that mind is instantly shrunk, and it's like, dude, you take it as when it comes, and
Mhm.
you're gonna be blessed and you're gonna be prosperous, especially when you have that when you have the right motive and your intent's right, especially when it comes to the future generations, because you can never go wrong with that attitude and with that mindset. You can't. I mean, and
I
you're gonna
agree.
continue to be prosperous. You are, dude. So you're still young, and all three of us are young,
I
but
don't know, man. You're kind of old.
yeah, no, dude. Yeah, you say I got twins in another 16 months. Yeah, I got three kids, and I'm not even
Congratulations.
not even 30 yet. Yeah, I'm old already. I'm gonna feel like it here in the
You're
next
an
six.
old fart, but I'm the one with the Santa Claus beard, I guess.
Dude, I'm 20. I'm 26 years old, and I sound like a bowl of Rice Krispies when I stand up. Man, everything is crackling and popping already, dude.
Dude,
It's
I can't.
bad.
I haven't grown one of those, dude, since 7 years when I was back in Ohio when I had a reason to for deer hunting season. Down here, ain't happening, man. The moment that curl right here with the hair and the hat, chop off.
This is all I get.
So, nah, dude, no, it's been an honor and pleasure, man. We definitely, I'm gonna have to get myself up there, not just, to talk with Cody and not to make sure that he's not left out, but also, take a field trip over and check you guys out too.
Absolutely, man. By the time you get up here, the facility it should even be better, dude. Every day I try to improve something. So
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's
Yeah, I'm still waiting for this tour you told me about, man.
I
I,
got you. I got you,
gotta
buddy.
be honest, man. The animal I'm probably most excited to see is the caiman.
Oh, he's cool, man. He isn't excited to see any of us, but he's cool.
Right. No, the last time I went in the shop, not the time where I saw you, probably the time before that. I think I stood and just watched him and the alligator for like 15, 20 minutes, and I'm pretty sure your employee was like, "What the hell is this guy doing?" It's just a little crocodilian in a tank, like what are you
He's just
doing?
sitting there.
I think it's more so like there's a lot of people that I feel like keep turtles because of their similarities to crocodilians in terms of like how they live their lives,
Yeah.
who don't own or can't own crocodilians, if that makes sense. Like,
Yeah, it's a big it would be a big it'd be a big jump in facility and stuff. But I feel you that like that open light basking aquatic
right.
majestic creature. Yeah.
And dude, I'm not even gonna lie. Like, if I had the means to be able to be surrounded by someone to be able to actually get my permit stuff, I've been wanting to. But it's so, unless you're doing like a full time thing, it's almost it's
Crazy.
pretty hard, man.
Yeah,
But
you said you have kept birds of prey before?
no, I did a lot of presentations with them before the Raptors
Oh,
and
okay.
yeah, and all that stuff. And I've done a lot of the ones with the venomous, and
Right.
but that was back in school, and
Right.
I not digging into, because most of the animals I use now are just my I'd say ambassadors, but
Mhm.
my wife's a high school science teacher also, so I'm
Oh,
using
awesome.
those outlets and using some daycare outlets, and it's just locally. I mean, it helps being. I like to because my avenue is the younger generation, to where my books can be an easy outlet, to where if that's my niche, and I can just keep publishing books and just having something to offer, and then following up with a live turtle or a live animal. I mean, that's
Mhm.
just my easy vehicle in.
Right. Oh yeah, absolutely.
So I mean, everyone's got their niche, man, and everyone's got their place. So I'm excited to see your new brand ambassador, with that white head and web feet too soon. So
Hey,
Soon.
I gotta ask this question before we wrap up the podcast, and we kind of talked about it prior.
Sure.
What's your experience with reptile shows in terms of like, were you a big seller before you opened a pet store, or like, I'm curious.
No, I was so I had my class 3 for a while before, but it was for like small personal purposes. Really, it wasn't like some big grand operation I had. But I've done the reptile show circuit. I think reptile shows are super duper cool. They have like there's some cons to them too. There's some like really like sort of aspects that I'm not super keen on, but I think overall reptile shows are dope, especially if you like ball pythons and leopard geckos and crested geckos, because that's what you'll see at the majority of most of them. They're like 80% those, and then you'll find that one like you'll find a breeder who's got like that one table kind of off to the side, and he's got like a smattering of crazy specific stuff that he breeds, and like those are the little diamonds in the rough amongst all the it's another crested gecko table. Those are cool though. I like shows. I like the show circuit. And part of it's just the networking. I like to see the people I know in the industry at the different shows and stuff. So
I know we talked a little bit about it, but what's your plan for Daytona, man?
So I'm gonna go down to Daytona, and just like most people who are in my industry, I'll be looking for things to bring back for the store if I can agree to the price. If it works out for me, I'll be trying to wheel and deal basically. But I have a really good buddy who is going to have a booth there, and when I'm not walking around, I'm going to be kicking it at Snakes and Stuff's booth. So they're going to have an awesome booth right up by the front. And he's primarily by ball pythons as well. I rag on ball python people a lot, but I'm like best friends with one, a breeder of them. He's going to have a bunch of other stuff there too, though, because he has his hands in a lot of different stuff. And when I'm not walking around, that's where I'm going to be kicking it, is at his booth right up there at the front. So, hey, I mean, if someone wants to stop by and say hi, that's probably where you'll find me.
Ed, you going to Daytona this year?
Yeah. Honestly, what day is it again?
Right before your twins are due, man. What is it? 21st through 23rd?
Yeah, they're doing there's like a pre-show thing. Like on Friday, they're doing like educational stuff, and then Saturday and Sunday there is the show days, and that is I know the 23rd is one of them. It's that weekend, the weekend of the 23rd.
Yeah. I saw Derek's thing is on Friday the 21st. So
that Tuesday is the official date of at least the inducement. So we'll see, unless they come early, but I'm gonna be going there. But honestly, I mean, most of the time I ever went to Daytona, I'm not gonna lie, it's always to collect cool stuff. Like, and I'm not even talking about animals. I'm talking about I support all the local artists and all kinds of stuff, dude. I mean, this is just even sitting right here. I mean, look. I mean, got paintings.
Oh, that's beautiful.
I mean, just like random stuff that like I think is like awesome. The coolest thing in the world. Books
that your wife hates.
Dude, I was like, dude, I got so much stuff I don't got enough wall for it. And she's like, you need to get rid of this stuff. I'm like, look, it'll serve its purpose sometime, some way.
That's one of the other beauties of the shows is it's not just animals.
No, and that's the thing. Like, dude, most people don't think you don't need to have an animal to actually reach someone. Do your passion, artwork, whatever it is. Do your passion, and
absolutely.
Guess what? Come on, man.
Yeah.
So, no, that's awesome, man. So hopefully I'll see you guys, but we'll see. Play by ear.
I'm still on eggshells, man. That'll be the day before I go back to work. So we'll see. We'll see. I would like to go. Initially, the plan was to have a table, but that didn't work out as planned for many reasons. So we'll see, man.
Okay. Well, I'll see you there then. We'll see.
Yeah. Guys, this has been Chantz. This has been What the Shell podcast. It's definitely been a pleasure. I've definitely learned a lot more about the business aspect of a reptile store than I thought of.
Me too. I learned a lot too, more than I ever thought I was gonna.
And hopefully, this actually serves more of an encouragement. Like, look, just what it takes and risk and everything. But look at the turnout of it. So I mean, you got to look on the other side and the flip side that you don't know what's ahead of the unknown. But guess what? Most of the things in this life, if you've never try to push past that, then nothing's worthwhile, if you've never tried to do anything like that you're not comfortable with. So, hats off to you, man.
You won't regret it. You won't regret it.
I had to share this, man.
Oh, Devin? Yeah, dude, Devin, and he's not lying, bro. He has I don't think he picked it up from a show specifically, but I'm gonna out my boy real quick. I love that guy. He's from South Florida, good friend of mine. I'm gonna out him real quick. That man's got like a life-size wood carving of a Komodo dragon, like a to scale, like 10-foot carving of a Komodo dragon. Yeah, he is a sucker for artwork, man. He's got a really cool collection of stuff.
Hey, dude, you don't got to feed it. You don't need anything. Just give it a nice, comfortable temperature at home.
Exactly.
I bet it keeps the predators away in the backyard.
Yeah, right. Exactly. He just puts it up like a fake owl.
So, all right, cool, man.
We are at the end of our 12th podcast. With
12, golly.
12, man. And we've made a lot of switches. Went from Friday to Tuesday. Now we're going from 7 to 8 p.m. next week. I feel like
adapt.
We're having to adapt, man. Just
that's it, man. If you don't,
gotta be flexible.
Hopefully, we help Chantz motivate himself to start this YouTube channel. You know, it's funny. I think I messaged you and said we should make a naturalistic enclosure for the gator and the caiman. That could be your first YouTube video, bro.
Dude, I would love to do that, dude. That is on my list of stuff to do because I already love bioactives enough. I'm about it. I'm about it. You be the guy to talk to. You be the guy to talk to too. I can come to you and you can help me put it together. You know aquaculture better than I do.
Yeah, Ed. You know aquaculture.
Are you talking to me?
Yeah, he's talking to you.
Yeah, dude. I'm talking to Ed, I guess.
Yeah, dude.
Cool. You might have to take that road trip up for that, man.
Dude, I'm always down for a road trip as long as I can fit all 4 or 5. I don't even know how many.
Gotta trade the
I'm like counting. I used to have to worry about counting animals, and now I gotta worry about counting, making sure I have enough kids.
Yeah, enough car sheets, man. No, it's definitely been a pleasure, man. I'm glad you agreed to come on.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sure we'll be.
Anything else we can find you on Facebook, Instagram? I know you don't do media, but
yeah. So I'm not good on it yet, but I do have most of the platforms except for YouTube. You can follow the shop page, Gator City Reptiles, on Facebook and Instagram. On Instagram, it's a _ in between the words Gator _City _Reptiles. And if you want to follow me in my personal wildlife pursuits and stuff, my journey, my Instagram is at The Backyard Biologist, all one word. The Backyard Biologist, all one word. That's my personal Instagram where I post a lot of my herping finds and little tidbits about nature and things like that. And there's a Facebook page for that too, but honestly, it's just a regurgitation of my Instagram. So you follow one, you follow them both.
Followed. You can't miss it. Holding a snake. Looking like you're doing a breakdance. Cool. Gotcha.
I've got two snakes in that picture. I got a black racer.
I thought the other one was a cane. Sorry.
Oh yeah, it's bad hip of mine.
Old man status, old man. No, if you send me, well, I have the links. I'll try to add the links to the post so people can find you. Hopefully, add some extra customers to your, products. And hey, man, I'm gonna be on the outside looking in and enjoying watching you grow, man. Definitely motivation for people.
Yeah, and honestly, and I'm not even gonna lie, dude. You were probably by far, especially in your niche and where you're at. And I'm probably most excited about you and everyone we've talked to for a follow up to just see where you're at and your progression and you're hungry, man. And you've got such a niche, not just as a career, but this is your lifestyle. This is your everything grind. And, seeing, I'm excited to see what you continue to do, even from a year from now, even 6 months from now. So,
dude, thank you. I appreciate that, man. All I can do is hope to deliver, man. That's all I'm going to do. I'll try my best. So
you got it, brother.
Hey, we'll make it happen, man. You'll deliver. You got to speak positive words, man.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. This has been What the
Shell
podcast. It's been another great one. We hope you guys tune in next Tuesday. Off the top of my head, I don't remember who we have.
Down.
That's the only way I can point.
I've not got that down yet, man.
I got really dark because I forgot to turn on my light, but that's all right. We're still here. We hope to see you next week, and make sure you guys tune in
Tuesday.
Tuesday, 8
At
p.m.
8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Eastern Standard Time. There we go.
EST.
All right, guys. We'll see you next week.
Peace.